Adanna sat quietly on the mat in front of a small house. She was just that in, but her eyes told a different story, one of fear and confusion. The village that was once filled with laughter and the sweet songs of children playing had become a place of secrets and shame. The girls she had known her entire life had all changed, and Adanna felt like she was the only one left behind, clinging to the old ways. It began with Ojeki, the daughter of the village chief. Ojeki had always been the pride of Umuoma, smart, beautiful, and respectful. But one day, she returned from the city with fancy clothes, sparkling earrings, and a strange new attitude. She no longer played with the other girls or listened to the elders' advice. Instead, she would sneak out at night, returning with money and gifts that no one dared to question. The other girls, curious and eager to have what she had, began to follow her lead. Soon, it wasn't just Ojeki. Chidinma, Amora, Nena, all the girls began to change. They would leave the village at night and come back before dawn, wearing things no one in Umuoma had ever seen. The boys whispered among themselves, but they were too scared to confront the girls. The elders tried to talk to them, but the girls would just laugh and walk away, their pockets full of money. Adanna's parents, Papa Ifani and Mama Ngozi, were terrified. They had raised their daughter to be good, to follow the tradition of their ancestors. But now, they were afraid she would be next. They didn't know how to protect her from the strange power that had taken over the village. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, Adanna heard her parents talking in hushed voices. "What are we going to do?" Mama Ngozi asked, her voice shaking. "Our daughter is still innocent, but for how long?" The other girls, "What if she follows them?" "We must keep her close," Papa Ifani replied. "We cannot let her fall into the same trap." "But what can we do? The village is changing, and we don't know why." Adanna, listening from her bed, felt a chill run down her spine. She knew her parents were right. She had seen the change in the other girls, and she was afraid. But she was also curious. What was it that made them so different? Why did they choose to walk this path? The next day, Adanna decided to talk to Ojeki. She waited until Ojeki was alone, then approached her quietly. "Ojeki," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why have you changed? What happened in the city?" Ojeki looked at her with eyes that were both cold and distant. "You wouldn't understand, Adanna," she said. "This village is too small, too old-fashioned. There's a whole world out there, and I've seen it. I've tasted it. You could have it too, if you wanted." Adanna felt a lump in her throat. "But what about our traditions? Our families?" Ojeki shrugged. "Traditions are for the old. We're young, Adanna. We deserve more." That night, Adanna couldn't sleep. Ojeki's words echoed in her mind. She wanted to understand, but she was afraid. The other girls seemed so different now, so distant. And yet, there was something in Ojeki's eyes, something that told her there was more to the story. As the days passed, the village of Umuoma grew more divided. The girls who had once been the pride of the village were now the source of its greatest shame. The elders held meetings, trying to figure out what to do, but no one had any answers. The boys watched from the sidelines, powerless to stop what was happening. And the parents, well, they could only pray that their daughters would come back to them. But Adanna wasn't ready to give up. She knew there was something she was missing, something important. She decided to follow the girls one night, to see where they were going and what they were doing. She didn't tell her parents, didn't tell anyone. She just waited until the village was asleep, then slipped out of her house and into the darkness. She followed the sound of laughter, the faint glow of lights in the distance. The path was narrow and overgrown, and Adanna had to be careful not to trip. Her heart was pounding in her chest, but she kept going. She had to know the truth. Finally, she reached the edge of the village, where the old market used to be. But it wasn't the same market anymore. The stalls were gone, replaced by strange lights and music that made her ears ring. And there, in the center of it all, were the girls, dancing, laughing, surrounded by men she didn't recognize. They were all dressed in the clothes Ojeki had brought back from the city, and they looked nothing like the girls Adanna had known. Adanna's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to run, to go back to her safe, familiar world. But something held her there, something that whispered in her ear, telling her to stay, to watch, to understand. And then she saw it, the moment that would change everything. Ojeki, standing in the middle of the crowd, reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and shiny. She held it up for everyone to see, and the crowd cheered. Adanna couldn't make out what it was, but she knew it was important, knew it was the key to everything that had happened. Ojeki looked around, her eyes scanning the crowd. For a moment, Adanna thought she saw her, but then Ojeki turned away, her attention drawn back to the cheering crowd. Adanna took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to get closer, had to see what Ojeki was holding. But as she took a step forward, something grabbed her from behind. Adanna gasped, turning to see a pair of dark eyes staring back at her. "You shouldn't be here," a voice whispered, and Adanna felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't recognize the girl who had grabbed her, but she knew she was one of the village girls. "What's happening?" Adanna asked, her voice trembling. "Why are you all here?" The girl shook her head. "You wouldn't understand," she said. "But you need to leave. Now." Adanna hesitated, but the girl's grip tightened. "Go," she hissed, and Adanna turned and ran, her heart racing. She didn't stop until she was back in her own house, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. She didn't know what she had seen, didn't understand what was happening. But she knew one thing, Umuoma would never be the same again. The village was changing, and there was no going back. But Adanna wasn't ready to give up. She knew there was more to the story, knew there were answers out there, if only she could find them. And so, with a heavy heart and a mind full of questions, Adanna made a decision. She would find out the truth, no matter what it took. The village might be falling apart, but she wouldn't let it go without a fight. She would find out what had happened to the girls of Umuoma, and she would bring them back, one way or another. Adanna didn't sleep that night. Her thoughts raced as she replayed the events at the market over and over in her mind. What had she seen? What was Ojeki holding? Why had the girls changed too much? She knew she couldn't face this alone. The next morning, she went to see the one person she could trust, her grandmother, Mama Ijeoma. Mama Ijeoma was wise and had seen many things in her long life. She lived on the edge of the village in a small, quiet hut surrounded by herbs and plants. Adanna found her sitting outside, grinding leaves with a mortar and pestle. "Grandma," Adanna said quietly as she approached. Mama Ijeoma looked up, her old eyes softening as she saw her granddaughter. "Adanna, my child, what troubles you?" Adanna sat down beside her grandmother and told her everything, the strange changes in the girls, the night she followed them, the market, and the mysterious object that Ojeki had shown the crowd. Mama Ijeoma listened carefully, her face growing more serious with every word. When Adanna finished, she was silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke. The world is changing, my child, she said. The city has brought many new things to our village, things that our people do not understand. The girls have been seduced by promises of wealth and power, but they do not see the dangers that come with them. Adanna frowned. But what can we do, Grandma? The elders can stop them, and the girls won't listen. Mama Ijeoma sighed. There is one thing you must understand, Adanna. This is not just about the girls. There is a darker force at work here, something that has taken hold of their hearts. The object you saw, whatever it is, it has a power over them. We must find out what it is and break its hold before it's too late. But how? Adanna asked. How can we stop something we don't even understand? Mama Ijeoma reached out and took Adanna's hand. You are braver than you know, my child. The girls trust you because you are one of them. They may have lost their way, but deep down, they are still our daughters, our sisters. You must get close to Ojeki again, find out what this object is, and bring it to me. Only then can we hope to break the spell that has taken hold of our village. Adanna nodded, determination filling her heart. She didn't know how she would do it, but she knew she had to try. The fate of Umuoma depended on it. That night, Adanna approached Ojeki again. She found her sitting alone by the river, staring into the water. Ojeki looked up as Adanna approached, her eyes empty and distant. Ojeki, Adanna began cautiously, I've been thinking about what you said. About the world outside the village. I want to understand. I want to be like you. Ojeki's eyes flickered with interest. You do? Adanna nodded. Yes, but I don't know how. I want to know the secret. I want to know what you have that makes you so different. Ojeki studied her for a long moment, then reached into her pocket and pulled out the object Adanna had seen at the market. It was a small, smooth stone, carved with strange symbols that seemed to glow in the dim light. This, Ojeki said quietly, is the key to everything. It's called the Stone of Desire. It grants you whatever you want, money, power, beauty. But it comes with a price. Once you use it, it takes something from you in return. Something you may never get back. Adanna's heart pounded in her chest. But what has it taken from you? Ojeki looked away, her expression pained. My freedom, she whispered. At first, it was just fun. We could have anything we wanted. But soon, the stone started demanding more. It's like a curse. We're all trapped by it now, unable to escape. Adanna felt a surge of fear and anger. Why didn't you stop? Why did you drag the other girls into this? I didn't mean to, Ojeki said, tears welling in her eyes. But once you start, it's hard to stop. The stone controls us now. I don't know how to break free. Adanna knew what she had to do. She had to take the stone to Mama Ijeoma. But how could she get it from Ojeki without her realizing? Maybe I can help, Adanna said, trying to sound calm. Maybe we can find a way to break the curse together. Can I see the stone? Ojeki hesitated, then slowly handed the stone to Adanna. The moment it touched her hand, Adanna felt a strange warmth, as if the stone was alive. She suppressed a shudder and forced herself to smile. Thank you, Ojeki, she said. I'll take it to someone who can help us. Ojeki looked at her with a mix of hope and fear. Be careful, Adanna. The stone is dangerous. I will, Adanna promised. I'll come back with a way to set us all free. That night, Adanna hurried to Mama Ijeoma's hut, the stone clutched tightly in her hand. When she arrived, Mama Ijeoma was waiting for her. You did well, Adanna, she said, taking the stone from her. This stone is powerful, but it is not invincible. We will need to perform a ritual to break its hold on the girls. Mama Ijeoma began preparing for the ritual, gathering herbs, lighting candles, and chanting ancient prayers. Adanna watched, her heart pounding with anticipation. She knew that this was their only chance to save the village. As the ritual began, the air grew heavy with the scent of burning herbs. Mama Ijeoma chanted in a language Adanna didn't understand, her voice rising and falling in a rhythmic pattern. The stone began to glow brighter, pulsing with an eerie light. Suddenly, the stone shattered into a million pieces, sending a shockwave through the hut. Adanna gasped, but Mama Ijeoma remained calm, her eyes closed as she finished the ritual. When it was over, Mama Ijeoma looked at Adanna and smiled. "It is done, my child. The curse is broken. The girls will be free now." Adanna felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had done it. She had saved her village. The next morning, the girls of Umuoma woke up feeling different. The strange hold that had controlled them was gone, and they were themselves again. They returned to their families, ashamed of what they had done but grateful to be free. Ojeki sought out Adanna, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Adanna," she said, embracing her friend. "You saved us all." Adanna smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. "We saved each other," she said. And so, the village of Umuoma began to heal. The girls returned to their old lives, and the village elders worked to rebuild the trust that had been lost. The Stone of Desire was no more, and with it, the darkness that had threatened to destroy the village was gone. But Adanna knew that the world was still changing, and that there would always be new challenges to face. She had learned that sometimes, the greatest power lies not in what we desire, but in the strength to resist it. And with that knowledge, she knew that whatever came next, she would be ready. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more captivating content like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your likes and shares help us reach more people and bring you even more exciting tales. Stay tuned for more fascinating stories.